Starting right now on ABC's This Week. Targeting terror.
This is my eyes and ears.
We're all access and behind the scenes with the Homeland Security Secretary, revealing the new threats that keep him up at night.
We had 2 bomb threats. We're looking at everything.
Making history. Pope Francis elevates 2 popes to sainthood. Hundreds of thousands pack St. Peter's Square, and we're in the middle of it all. On a mission.
Come on, step up your game.
Elizabeth Warren's fiery message is energizing Democrats. Plus, Robin Roberts looks back on her historic conversation.
There was a point where I was thinking to myself, can someone else do this interview?
From ABC News, This Week with George Stephanopoulos begins now.
Good morning. Lots of ground to cover today, and we begin in Rome, where 500,000 pilgrims now packing St. Peter's Square to witness a moment in history. 2 living popes together to canonize 2 former popes. ABC's chief foreign correspondent Terry Moran is on the scene for the ceremony. Good morning, Terry.
Good morning, George, and what a morning it's been. The atmosphere electric here among the more than 1 million pilgrims they believe showed up. And they streamed into St. Peter's Square, beginning at dawn, filling the place, the long avenues, to witness that moment, the high ceremony of the Catholic Church, Pope Francis with Pope Benedict in attendance, making saints of 2 of their predecessors, John Paul II, John the 23rd. And throughout the crowd, really at that moment, a remarkable quiet, a sense of reverence in this vast crowd. Pope Francis concluding the ceremony and touring around in his Pope mobile, electrifying the crowd even more. What does it mean for Catholics here? They said, now that John Paul II and John the 23rd, popes they grew up with, are saints, they feel they have 2 new friends in heaven.
2 popes, 2 saints. In 2,000 years, the Catholic Church has never seen anything like it.
Saints are important to us in the Catholic imagination. We look to them for help.
Cardinal Timothy Dolan of the Archdiocese of New York is here, one of more than 100 cardinals arriving from around the world.
These 2 have such a universal acclaim. You're talking about the voice of the faithful, the voice of the people speaking up and saying, these 2 are saints. It's almost like Pope Francis saying, I agree with you.
Both the new saints were men of the media age. They were religious celebrities.
These are not saints that are in the far pages of history. These are saints who so many of us knew, felt like we knew. We know what they did. They were part of our lives.
John Paul II globalized the papacy, making 104 foreign trips, visiting 129 countries. And he arrived on the scene with a vitality that electrified millions, secular as well as religious, even in the United States.
God bless America.
And John Paul reined in what he saw as excessively liberal trends unleashed by Vatican II, the council called by John the 23rd, a generation earlier. John declared he wanted to throw open the windows of the church, and liberals rejoiced. But the fact that both these popes will be made saints at the same moment says something about the pope who's doing it, Francis.
Francis is saying, I'm a little tired of these intramural divisions in the church. I don't like all this arguing. So he says, guess what? I'm going to build a bridge and bring them both together and bring the church closer together.
Francis bent the church rules for both the popes he makes saints. For John the 23rd, he waived the usual requirement of a second miracle. For John Paul II, he continued the fast track to sainthood begun by Pope Benedict. And that has stirred some controversy, especially for John Paul, whose long papacy was shadowed by the church sex abuse scandal.
They would be the first to shake their heads and say, you mustn't have known us very well because we're not saints. Saints, first and foremost, know that they're sinners.
In the end, perhaps, this is where the saints are really made, not in the grand ceremonies of the church or their own private struggles, but in the hearts and lives of the people they touched. Terry Moran, ABC News, Vatican City.